Hi, I'm Josh Ellsworth with Stahl's CAD-CUT Direct. We're all in business to make money, so you can't afford to throw it away on wasted material. In this video, I'll show you how to cut down on waste by knowing exactly how the pinch rollers on your cutter works, as well as the sheet sensor. I have a roll of CAD-CUT material here. My goal is to utilize as much of this as possible. That way I'm getting the most bang for my buck and lowering the cost per design that I produce. Here's a good example, or should I say a bad example, of something that's been cut on a vinyl cutter. It fed through the machine, and this was the lead-in edge. So these 4 inches of material, they're all waste. They're going in the garbage. I cannot reclaim this piece and load it back in the cutter. Also, you'll notice about an inch on the side of the material. This is waste as well. That's where my pinch roller was locked down on. So the goal, get as close to the edge with your graphic and reduce this lead-in edge. Let's show you how to do that on a few different cutters. To start, I'll take my roll and simply load it in the back of the machine and feed it through the pinch rollers. Now once you get your material in a general position, you just want to kind of hang it over the edge here for a moment. These rollers, the pinch rollers that lock down on the edge of the material, these are on all styles of vinyl cutters, have some placements. Typically a machine will have marks, whether they're white or green or purple or another color, where you can lock the pinch rollers down. If you feel on your roller bar, there'll actually be grit underneath these marks, and that'll allow the material to track through accurately for a longer period of time. So the goal is to adjust this roll in the back in a way that the edge falls under each white mark. A bad example would be as if I went to adjust the rollers and lock them down like this. As you can see, the rollers inside of here, this machine only cuts in between the pinch rollers, so I'm going to lose this entire outside edge. So the goal is to adjust the roll so the rollers lock down on the very edge of the material on both sides. You don't want to squeeze it too tight, because then what happens is if you're feeding a long job, as it starts to track, it will go off slightly or go off easier out from under the pinch rollers. So it's a balance. You want it to be as far to the edge as possible to save on material, but not completely exceeding the edge of the material. So once you have it in a good position, simply lock it down. Now this is a cutter, the Roland GX24, that only cuts in between the pinch rollers. There are cutters on the market, such as the one I'll show you next, that can actually cut out over top of the pinch rollers, which really utilizes material in a nice way. Once I lock these down, I'm simply going to tell the machine that I have a roll loaded. That's not really important, seeing the actual control board. The important thing is to know that you're telling the machine that material's loaded, and right now it's scanning the distance between the rollers. Now a lot of people would send the job just like this, but just as I showed you in the example, there's a lot of wasted material, because this cutter is going to start right where the blade sits, which is right here on the material. So the goal is to push the up arrow key or retract the material back into the cutter as far as you can go. If your cutter has a sheet sensor on the front of the machine, such as the one I'm showing here, usually it will automatically stop at the furthest point past this sheet sensor. Some cheaper units don't actually have this sensor, so you could retract the material all the way back through the machine. The goal is to get it as close to this white cutting strip that's underneath the material. That's where the cutting blade actually lands down on, and the machine does all the cutting. So if you want to cheat this machine, just simply cover up your sheet sensor and hit the up arrow key to retract the material, and I can back it up even more, almost all the way to the edge of the white cutting strip, as you can see here. That's how to maximize material, by reducing your lead-in edge and squeezing your pinch rollers as far as you can to the outside of the material. Let's take a look on another cutter. Now for this unit, the GCC Puma, you have a lot of the same concepts. You'll load your material up through. You still have your adjustable pinch rollers and your white markings on the machine that the pinch rollers must fall down underneath. And you can kind of squeeze these out to the edge as far as you want, and then lock down the lever to lock the pinch rollers into place. And then it prompts you for a roll, edge, or single. Now if I do a roll on this particular style of cutter, it's going to measure the width, and it's not going to allow me to advance the material back like I was able to on the other machine. That's just the way this cutter is. So the best way for me to maximize material with this unit is to select the edge option. Now you could have selected the edge on the roll-in cutter, but it's not going to allow you to do the same sort of thing. You can actually kind of cheat with the roll setting on the roll-in cutter by covering the sheet sensor, as I showed you. With this one, you can't cheat that way, so it's going to default back, take it back to the edge automatically, and start cutting here. Now the real thing that I wanted to show you here is the cutter's ability to cut over top of the pinch rollers. You got to be careful with this because you don't want to cut off of the rollers and completely outside of the sheet dimensions, but you can program the cutter in the setup to cut over top of the rollers, and let's show you that. So to set up this expanded cut mode, the first thing you want to do is take the machine offline because right now it's ready to receive a job from the computer. So when you take it offline, you can control the menu functions. I'm going to go into the miscellaneous menu setting. It may be different for your brand of cutter, but you should be able to get to this type of mode if it has the functionality. And then you scroll through the settings, and the particular setting on this unit is called paper saving mode. So I go to paper saving mode, go into the setting, and right now it's on unexpanded mode. So I can change that to with expanded mode, which means it's going to cut over the rollers, and then I'll press enter to go into that, and it'll save that. Now it's asking me to put the lever up because it wants to resize the media for the new cut area. Now you won't have to reload the material every time, it just fell out that time, but the goal here is once again set it up, relock my roller, and tell it edge. And now you'll notice that it'll come all the way out to the edge of the outside pinch roller. And so I've expanded my cutting mode. I'm almost completely to the edge. Now the last unit I want to show you is just a cheap, basic cutter. This one doesn't have a sheet sensor at all, so you can actually scroll the material all the way back to the cutting strip, and you can scroll the material completely out of the machine. So I mean, it's nice because you can save on material by scrolling it back and lining it up manually. It doesn't do it automatically for you, and also there's no restricted areas for your pinch rollers on this unit other than you can't place a roller under this mark because there's no grit roller underneath there. So you pretty much have the whole cutting area to line up. But also there's some drawbacks to this type of unit. While you can utilize material pretty well, there's no measurement, and the software has no idea the size of your material, and the cutting edge can actually hit up against this reset button in the middle of your job if you're not careful on sizing of your design, if it's trying to cut something way over there, and it can lock up the machine during a job. So it's a cheap unit. This is actually a under $300 unit, I believe. So it doesn't have a lot of increased functionality with sheet sensors and knowing when materials load in, unload in the machine. But for maximizing materials, it's actually quite efficient. So I just want to wrap this whole thing up and let it really hit home on what maximizing material can mean to your business. And this is just one small way that you can make the best use of your material. Let's look at this sample one more time. If you take into account about a 1-inch lost material, lost usage of material on each side of your media, if you ganged up the images properly in your software, material costs about a penny a square inch, roughly on average. So 36 inches in a yard times 1 inch on each side, so 2 inches times 36 inches is 72 inches. So it's about 72 cents per yard that you're throwing away on wasted material by not utilizing all the way up into the outside edge. Also, you have your lead-in edge, which was actually this front side. So depending on how much you're wasting here, if you're wasting 1 inch to 4 inches, you're throwing a lot of money away because remember, this is 4 inches by 20 inches wide. I've wasted clear across this material on every lead-in edge for every new job. So you add that up, there's another 4 times 20 is 80 square inches, another 80 cents. So I'm losing about $1.50 per yard just in waste around the outside border of my material, not to count what I've wasted by not ganging up images properly, but that's a whole nother video. So I just wanted to show you how picking the right cutter from the start and really learning your cutter and how to maximize material on it is very important to your business when you're utilizing CAD cut materials or sign vinyl. Thanks for watching.